How would you feel if your country banned Burkhas in public like Denmark? I'm Finnish and would be happy about it. This is the country of equality. We don't need backwards ways which oppress women. Also, it's unfair that according to law, you need to unmask yourself for ID photos and such, but women in Burkhas can just show their eyes. I grew up Muslim, and the funny thing is the apologists who say, it's the woman's choice, she can decide not to wear any covering. Can she though? Without fear of judgment and shame from any combination of her immediate family, extended family, local Muslim community, family friends, non-family friends whose opinion still counts because the girl is bringing shame, and probably others I've forgotten about. It's her choice, as much as the opinion of everyone/thing around her leaves her with one option LOL. I'm genuinely torn on this. On the one hand, yes, because I do believe that for many women the burqa isn't a free choice, and that it can be a sign of limited freedom rather than empowerment. On the other hand, no, because if a woman truly chooses to wear it, then I don't think the state should decide that for her. The problem is that you can never fully know where choice ends and pressure begins. That's what makes this such a difficult issue. I am from Denmark, and we already did that. Although it's worth noting that all of these bans are on face covering in general, no matter what type of face covering it is. Unless there is a legitimate purpose like protection, or as part of a political protest. This is to ensure it doesn't specifically discriminate based on religion, thus complying with international human rights conventions. I'm not a big fan of the government telling people what they can and can't wear. Great. Conflicted. On the one hand, I do not support the subjugation of women regardless of whether or not it's based in their religion. On the other, I do not support the government banning attire. Only requiring minimum coverage in public simply to prevent indecent exposure of genitals, specifically. Well, when in Rome. If you go to another country, respect that country's traditions. That includes clothing, celebrating holidays, etc. I think it's completely normal to not accept things that make people uncomfortable in their own country. I think the practice is sexist, but the state should under no circumstances be banning clothing beyond that which is required for basic public safety. There should be no limits to peaceful freedom of expression. My country has. Whatever you think on burqa, it's a stupid, populist measure. Ever since the ban, women just wear medical face masks instead. Are you going to ban those too, a few years after mandating them? Policing the attire of grown-ass adults is a cheap way to score free political points without actually doing anything to improve the living conditions of the population. You're just being distracted. I wonder how that works out in real life. Does it mean Muslim women in Denmark are walking around with uncovered faces in public when they wouldn't be otherwise? Or has the unintended result of the law been fundamentalist Muslim men not allowing the women of their households to go out in public at all? Not an issue that I want decided by legislation. Governments shouldn't dictate what women can and can't wear. Yes, that includes burqas. The government should not be able to tell people what they can and cannot wear. And even if the reason women are wearing it is sexism, banning the article of clothing itself is not solving the root cause of the problem. Do you think just because that woman no longer wears the burqa in public, she no longer experiences the effects of misogyny at home? The answer to restrictions of women's freedoms cannot be more restrictions of women's freedoms. People on here who are in favor of this because the burqa is misogynistic, I have to ask. What do you think will happen to women who are actually being forced to wear burqas? Do you think that once the government bans them, that their husbands will just say, okay then, don't wear a burqa? No. They will just not be allowed to leave their homes at all. They will go from having limited freedom to having no freedom, and any chance that they could reach out for help will be gone. Anything that forces women out of the public sphere is misogynistic. Banning the burqa just means you won't see the burqa anymore. It doesn't mean that those women are magically free now.